Hi, welcome to the Corner of Knit and Tea, episode 481. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kara on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And let me think about this. I have a website called The Corner of Knit and Tea, which is where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop where I sell my handspun yarn and knitting patterns. That's called The Corner of Knit and Tea on Etsy. And then currently we are in the middle of Tour de Fleece, which is a spinning event for every summer. And we are hosting that in a variety of places, including the Ravelry group, which is called The Corner of Knit and Tea, a Facebook group called Team CKT Spin It to Win It, and also on Instagram. And I will put information about that in the description box down below so you can find those, and you can participate in any or all of the places that you feel like participating. You don't need to post in multiple places if you don't want to. I am posting in all this kind of all over because I want to participate with those folks who choose to participate in different venues, but you do not need to. Pick the one that's best for you and go with that. So hi, how are you? It is Monday, July 1st. It is a holiday week here in the US. Thursday, July 4th is our Independence Day, and it's a federal holiday, meaning we're off work, and it's just a really weird time to, a Thursday holiday is really weird. I am not taking extra time off, so I'm working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and so like we have to get ready for a bunch of stuff early in the week, and then I'll pick up a few pieces on Friday, and so it's an odd week. So I hope that you are doing well. I had an absolutely delightful weekend. So I got to do lots of crafting. I got to spend lots of time outdoors, which was beautiful. So I live just outside or in the Kansas City metro area, which is kind of the adjoining Kansas and Missouri areas. The Missouri River runs in between the eastern side of Kansas and the western side of Missouri, and the city sprung up on both sides of the river, and we live kind of on the south end on the Kansas side. And normally summers here are quite unpleasant. They are Midwestern. So the weather ranges between thunderstorms, hot, humid days, triple-digit heat index. It can be really not for the faint of heart. And actually, this weekend was crazy lovely, and I don't really understand how or why, but it was fabulous. So we had a big storm Friday night, lots of thunder and lightning, and really, really windy, and it cooled things off for the weekend, and yesterday was about 75 degrees and sunny. And it was absolutely the most gorgeous day ever. And I went out early in the morning to go ahead and get a 5K run in because I have been trying to do more 5Ks this year, some kind of sponsored runs and then some on my own, just to kind of build up my distance. I walk and jog a little bit, and I prefer to be outside other than on the treadmill, but of course in the summer it's so disgusting here. Even if you get up at 7 a.m., oftentimes it's 80 degrees with 80% humidity. And so yesterday I was like, it was 63 at 7:30 in the morning, and I was like, I am going outside today. I'm going. So I went out and I did the walk, and actually my husband did it with me, and it was wonderful. And then he had a friend of his was having a party, and they were hosting it at a shelter in one of the local parks. And normally I would be kind of reticent about going because, again, hot, humid, really gross. No, it was like 75 and beautiful. The park was beautiful. I guess it was formerly a golf course, and they turned it into a public park. And so one section had like a whole bunch of climbing equipment. There was a section for the small kids, and then there were these beautiful shelters that had these huge awnings over them, and you could fit like 10 or 12 tables underneath them. And so like there was a party of 40 or 50 people, and we all fit under this like in place structure. When I say awning, it actually was crafted of wood. So it was, I mean, it wasn't exactly terrace, it was solid wood and a metal frame, and it was beautiful. And we sat outside, and it was breezy and sunny and warm and not disgusting, and it was amazing. And so we actually stayed longer than we had planned to because it was so beautiful. So this morning we had nothing but rain, and now it's sunny and humid, and we are going back up the heat this week, although we will probably have thunderstorms on and off all week. I know I talk a lot about the weather, but in the Midwest the weather changes so often. Anyway, I had a lovely weekend. The other other thing that happened this weekend is the Tour de France started. So the Tour de France started technically in Italy this year. And so the first 2 days were in Italy. So we got to watch stage 1 and stage 2. They were both quite long stages. And so for my personal, we watched the stages that were, well, technically the broadcast I think was about 6 hours, but we probably abbreviated and watched 2 or 3 hours, which was lovely. We got to see some of Italy. The first day they started in Florence and went to Rimini, and the second day they left Rimini and went to Bologna. And so there were lots of mountain climbs, and it was really pretty. And in some ways it's similar to seeing the French countryside over the summer, but in some ways it's really not. And so that was kind of fun. And then of course I got to do a lot of spinning. So I don't have a ton of things to show you today, but I'll show you what I've got. I've got a little bit of spinning, I've got a little bit of knitting, I've got a little bit of embroidery, and then I'll talk about what I'm going to work on this week, sort of in terms of what's on my plate and going forward. And I hope that you too are having a crafty time. I hope that if you're spinning along with us. Obviously, you don't have to. My group is very light on the rules. The rules are spin, have fun, post and cheer each other on. So that's kind of it. So I know a few of you are spinning along with us, and I'm really excited to see it. So let's talk about, I'll do knitting, spinning, embroidery, and then I'll talk about the last few things, or I'll pepper them in along the way. Okay, so I finished the top that I am wearing. So this is, I will stand up briefly, even though I'm not really wearing the pants for this. So this is the Weekday Tee. It is by Amy Scher, and it is a very simple top-down raglan. What it does have is it does have this really nice little lace detail at the raglan shaping at the shoulders, and I knit it almost exactly as written. I ended up adding a few extra rows in the raglan shaping because I wanted to be sure that it would be nice enough and comfortable under the arms. I didn't want it to be too tight around there, and my row gauge was a little bit off. So I did add that, but otherwise I basically knitted, and I think I knitted about to pattern in terms of length. The yarn that I used is from a local dyer to me named Threadhead. And the skein, she calls the yarn Mini Boomer. What it is it's a merino bamboo blend. It's 65% superwash merino, 35% bamboo. And I thought that would make a really nice summer tee because wool is great because it wicks up moisture. And the bamboo gives it kind of a nice silky feeling and a little bit of drape. So it was really simple. It was kind of the first big project that I tackled since I've had my tendonitis. And I did back and forth up at the top here, but then as soon as I joined in the round, it was perfect. And I just knit, and I actually completed the sweater right about in a month. So I started it the weekend of Memorial Day, which I think was the 26th, 27th, 28th, somewhere around there. And I finished it this past Wednesday, which was the 26th. So it took me right about a month. And then I washed it and blocked it. And now I'm wearing it today. And I think I'm going to try and get my husband to take a picture of me in it, which might be the picture on this particular episode's cover. So that is what I did. I really loved it. I used slightly smaller needles than called for. I almost always do that. I can't remember what needles it might have been a 4 and a 2 or a 3 and a 1, and I ended up using a 2 and a 1, which is pretty much what I do for my fingering weight tops. And I was smack on stitch gauge, and then like I said, I was a little bit off on row gauge, but I worry less about that. The only issue is potentially in the shaping up here, but otherwise I just knit till I'm happy with it. And then it just has some short sleeves, and I followed the pattern almost exactly. It was well written, it was easy. Yeah, to keep track of the raglan shaping a little bit because it wasn't 100% even. It wasn't like like a super simple raglan top. Often you will do raglan shaping every other row. There was a little bit of calculating things and keeping track of which row you were on, but once that was passed, then it was just super, super easy. And so I'm really pleased. I love having a new top tee for the summer, and so I'm already thinking about my next one. In the meantime, I told you what I was going to do was pick up a work in progress. And I did, and I got a little bit of work done. I am working on 2 at a time toe-up socks. This is a pattern that I knit twice last year. It is a free pattern from Knit Picks, and I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called 2 at a time toe-up magic loop. And I knit these socks as samples for Zen Yarn Garden when I was knitting for them. And the deal is that the heel flap and gusset kind of start under the foot and then come up around the back of the foot. And so you've got kind of this slip one, knit one kind of gathered area, double thick fabric, like under your heel, around the back, and then up the back of your heel for a little bit. So it sort of looks like the gusset kind of doubles, or the heel flap at the back goes under the foot as well. And so I wanted to try that for myself because I was intrigued by the construction and I wondered what it would feel like to wear. And because they were sample socks, I knit them and washed them and blocked them and sent them off. I mean, I put it on my foot, but like I wasn't going to walk in it because I didn't want to ruin the samples. So I sent those out and I decided that I was going to go ahead and knit myself a pair of socks like that. And I bought some yarn around the same time and thought it was kind of a great match of pattern and yarn. So the yarn that I bought was Freya Fibers, and Freya is known for gradients. They dye these beautiful, beautiful gradients, and it's hard to see the gradient right now because I've already used the kind of the centermost part of the ball, but this is the chameleon colorway, and this is part of what Freya calls her soulmate sock sets. And what this is it's 2 skeins of yarn. They're dyed exactly the same way. They are each exactly the same length so that you can basically knit 2 socks and they will be exactly equal. They will look exactly the same. So they'll be matching gradient socks. So what I decided to do was I decided to go ahead and combine my gradient socks where I would probably want to start from the toe up anyway so that I could use all the yarn. And I find that knitting toe up socks is really great for that because you start with the foot and whatever, and then you get to the leg and you can just increase on the back of the leg for calf increases if you need to, if it's tall enough for that. So basically I decided that I was going to combine kind of this 2-up magic loop, 2 at a time toe up magic loop with my gradient set. And so you can see that I've gotten through like the really, really spring green. And the last time we talked, or the couple times that I have shown these socks before, I was literally like just past where the toe finished. So I had finished the increases and I had done like the first couple rows. So I got about 2 inches done, and I always forget that on 2 at a time socks, it goes really slowly. Like, because I'm used to knitting a 1 at a time sock, and like if I sit down for an hour and work on that sock, I've got several inches done because I just zip round and round and round. But of course, in the 2 at a time, you're doing both socks at once, and you also have to do some needle management and some yarn management to keep your yarn from tangling. And so it takes a little bit longer. But I'm really pleased with my efforts this week, and I plan to continue working on these until these are finished. I would love to get these off the needle. Obviously, I don't need wool socks right now because it is really warm and mostly I'm wearing flip-flops. But I thought it would be kind of fun to get something off the needles. And I'd like to, I started these socks back in the spring when I was having issues with my tendonitis, and so they kind of just got put aside as I picked up other things, and they actually are great because I'm not doing any texture or patterning, so I will be doing a knit one, slip one, but basically I'm knitting these socks in the round, and there will be a little back and forth at the heel, but I'm just knitting these in the round and they're stockinette, and so it's super easy. I am knitting these on zeros, and I'm using 60 stitches, which is what I normally do for my foot size. And I'm actually almost to the part where it is time to start the heel flap kind of under the heel. I think I have maybe another inch or inch and a half, and then I'll be there. So I expect to be working on that next week and have some of that to show you, but this is a good project. Also, I think during Tour de France, because I can work on it a little bit each night, and I can also spend most of my time spinning. So that is the project that is in progress. I did decide on another project that I would like to do. I am really into sweater knitting right now, and I'm also really into knitting tops and tees. I don't know why. I guess maybe because it's a little less work, and because you can wear them all around the year, because I can always put on a sweater, like a cardigan over this if I really wanted to in the fall when it gets chilly. So Joji Locatelli came out with a new pattern this week. It's called the Hipster Tee, and it is sort of a second design slash companion slash iteration on her hipster shawl. And the hipster shawl has this section where you basically do some extra loops so that you have kind of elongated loops, and then you cross those loops over almost like as if you were cabling them. And so Joji's new pattern has that little detail right up here at the top on the shoulders, and then it is just a striped tee, and it's got a v-neck, and then so basically you start at the shoulders, I think, and then you work down the fronts, and you work down the back, and then you join in the round, and you just knit in the round for the rest of the time. And it is worked in 2 skeins of, for my size, it requires a little right around 800 yards in 2 colorways, and so that's basically 2 skeins of fingering weight. And I had started a tank top a while ago called the applesauce top. And as I spoke to you about it last week, I had this kind of sneaking suspicion as I was knitting it, as I started to keep knitting, and it said, you know, work until this length or until your increases are finished. And I kind of got to that length, and I went a little past that length, and then I still had a whole bunch more increases to do. And when I pulled out my tape measure, sure enough, I was not on gauge, and I was not on row gauge. And the issue, anytime you work with a pattern, most designers will give you a stitch and a row gauge. And sometimes, stitch gauge is always really important because stitch gauge, for the most part, basically is going to give you the circumference of your finished object. So if you don't want a top to be entirely too big around or entirely too small around, you really have to pay attention to your stitch gauge. Row gauge can be a little squidgier. Like I said, it can be a problem up at the top if you're going for a certain length. But on the other hand, if you are just knitting kind of the straight body of a sweater, it doesn't really matter whether your row gauge is on or off. You might need a little bit more or a little bit less yarn, but it's not actually going to affect sort of the overall garment, because for the most part, you can just knit until you are happy with the length, providing you have enough yarn. So basically what I realized is that the applesauce top is like 2 triangular pieces here, and they kind of fold over. And then you make a back piece that you attach them to. And what I was doing was I was knitting one of the front triangles, and the problem is that I had a whole bunch more increases, and I already kind of had the length that I needed for that front triangle. So unfortunately, having to keep going and going and going meant that the potential crossover of my triangular pieces was going to be like way too low and indecent. And so I decided that I was just going to rip that yarn out. I was not going to do that design, and I was just going to use those 2 skeins that I had put aside for that design for the Joji Locatelli top. So that is going to be the next top on my needles, and I am using the carrot and stick approach to try and work on whips. So I'm going to try and get the socks finished first before I cast that top on, and then that top is a little bit of a new cast on and a little bit of a whip, because I ripped out something that was in progress, and I'm going to reuse the yarn to make a new cast on. So that's kind of how I'm working through some of the projects that were waiting in the wings, and how I hope to spend the next month or 2. So I will bring that. I don't think I'll finish my socks next week, but I'll bring the project next week so I can show you a picture of the top, and then also the yarn itself. And I'll put it in the show notes as well if you want to look at it. And so I'm excited about that. I'm just kind of into knitting sweaters and tees, and maybe this year is about selfish knitting for me. I just realized that I didn't talk about the tee. I keep looking down at my cup and I'm like, I never talked about the tee. So we're gonna go a little out of order, and we'll what's the word that I'm looking for? Not diverge. Okay, we're gonna skip over to the tea. Apparently my brain's not working today. Today I am drinking, oh, and I didn't even bring the tea with me. That's really great. I am drinking Church Mouse China Black Tea. It is an Assam tea from somewhere in China, and it is delicious. It's just a basic black tea, and I decided I could use a little boost this afternoon to finish all of my work. What I have here is I have it in my favorite Wizard of Oz mug. It says, "Dear Dorothy, hate Oz, took the shoes, find your own way home," and it's from Toto. And there are lots of Kansas jokes when I live in Kansas. Sorry, there are lots of Wizard of Oz jokes because I live in Kansas. So, China Black Tea from Church Mouse Yarn and Teas. Okay, I talked about knitting. Let's talk about spinning. I have very little to show you because I did not do much spinning last week. Last week, I really... I was out of town last weekend, and I really fought this past week to kind of get back into the swing of things. And so it took me a little time to I was really tired most nights. So basically, I started spinning again this weekend when the Tour de Fleece started. And what I did is I finished the spin that was on the wheel. So this is Fading Light. It is in Rambouillet, and it is from Hello Yarn. It has not been washed yet, but I did finish it. I'm probably between 350 and 400 yards. It will likely be a sport to DK weight. It's nice and squishy, and it's going to plump up after its bath, and it is these really lovely tones of kind of a golden yellow, like very wheat-like, and then kind of a purple and a little bit of a mauve or a slightly pinker purple. And there are sections of it that I spun it as a fractal. Hang on 2 seconds. I spun it as a fractal spin, which means on one, I divided the braid in half. I actually divided it in half vertically. So I tore the entire length of the braid into 2 roughly equal parts. And then I tore one side into smaller strips, 3 or 4 strips. And then on the second one, I tore it into 2 strips. And so one set of the singles that I spun had short repeats and one had longer repeats. And so I kind of got this really nice yarn. In places you can see barber pole, in places the colors line up, and I think this would be a really, really stunning shawl. It would be great for fraternal accessories as well, like if you wanted to make a hat and mittens or socks. It's not superwash, but it would be really cushy socks. But I think it would be really great as a shawl or shawlette, because I think what it's going to do is kind of subtly stripe the way the colors kind of line up and break and line up and break, and so I think it would be really nice in sort of kind of a larger piece. Anyway, I am going to wash this and thwack it, and I'll take final measurements, and it will go up in the shop later this week. Technically, this is kind of sort of the first finished skein of the tour. I finished the singles on Saturday, and I plied it yesterday, and I'm really, really pleased. I told you last week that my goal for this Tour de Fleece was not to spin for hours and hours and hours as I have in the past, because I am still kind of trying to be a little bit gentle. So what I did is on Saturday I had about 1.5 ounces of singles to spin, so I spun that up in right around an hour. Okay, so my goal was to spin for at least 15 minutes a day and then decide based on how my arm felt how much longer I wanted to go on. So on Saturday I spun for about I started spinning and I ended up spinning for about an hour while watching the tour, and I finished up my 1.5 ounces of singles. I quit there, even though I could have started something else, but I decided, you know what, let's just go easy on it. And so then I came back and plied yesterday, and I had to play in 2 separate sessions. So I plied a chunk of it in the afternoon while we were watching the tour, and then I took a break for a while and kind of sat on the couch and read and did other things and gave my arm a chance to kind of rest and relax a little bit, and then I finished playing it last night. It may have been more than I should do last night, but I kind of do like playing in one go, and I really wanted a finished skein. So that is the finished skein. So today I will be starting on something new, and the last week I showed you a big bucket of fiber samples. These are samples that I have gotten at various places. They either are stuck in with orders. I got them when I went to Ply-Away. There's a little bit left from something that I was spinning and I didn't catch the last little fiber nest before I applied it. A variety of colors, and so I am going to spin all of that together and kind of make a scrappy fractal skein, an entirely scrappy skein. And then I also have the little bits of plying balls left over from when I don't measure my bobbins quite accurately, and so I'm going to use those to do some of the plying with it. So I took all of those samples out and I put them in the bucket right beside my wheel. What I did is I had a few neutral samples, like just plain white samples, and I decided to keep those, or like natural fibers. I decided to keep those for something else. I don't know what I'll do with them, but I decided that I didn't want to add those in, that I really wanted this to be kind of riotous color. And so I've taken all the color samples and I've taken them out to my wheel, and so they are sitting out there ready for this evening. I have no idea how long this project will take me. I have some leftover singles on a bobbin. I used to put a lot of my leftover singles on a bobbin, so it's a variety mishmash of things. I have probably a dozen of those little plying balls, and And so my plan is to spin some singles and then ply some and see how far I get and maybe spin a little more. I don't know. I'm just going to kind of play it by ear and do that for the next several days and see what it gets me. So that'll be kind of an interesting one. I'll show some photos over the next few days on Instagram or in the Facebook group or Ravelry. I do enjoy posting daily Tour de Fleece photos, so I will be doing that. And actually, now that the sun's out, I can take a few photos. This morning it was so dark, I had all the lights on and it was still like shrouded in darkness in here, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to take any pictures or do anything today, but we're good now. So that is the spinning news, and I will be spinning on all throughout the week and weekend. I have no big plans, and like I said, I have the socks, and I do have a chicken that I'm working on, but I'll work on that kind of in my spare time. My favorite thing to do is sit down and watch a couple hours of the tour in the evening and sit and spin, and I will spin until my arm feels like it doesn't want to spin anymore. So finally, the last thing that I wanted to show you was an embroidery piece that I'm working on, and I'm still not quite finished. This is a piece from Hoffelt and Hooper, and this is the little booklet that they sent with it, and this is kind of the one that they're all slightly different, but they're all very similar in terms of flowers and layout. And the one that I am doing looks like this. So I am not quite done, but I am getting very, very close. So what I finished since I saw you last is I finished the mint green. I had some of that done before. The mint green French knots. I finished the red French knots last night. I did kind of the back stitch in the French knots here. These little buds are kind of a reddish orange, a color that's not in this yet. And then I need to finish the second set of leaves and then add, you can see it calls for some kind of veins in the leaves in a slightly lighter color, so I need to do that here, and then I also need to go back and do that here. So again, this is a kit from Hoffelt and Hooper. I got it off of Etsy. I'm really, really enjoying this, and I convinced my husband that this coming weekend we should hang a few hooks in my room. I think I'm going to put some embroidery right up here next to me, or maybe on this back wall right here next to the baker's rack, and so I need to do a little bit of finishing because I haven't been I've been really good about sewing all of these, about stitching all of these designs and finishing them, and even like going through the fabric on the back and kind of pulling it down so that it's like all kind of, the fabric is all finished. But what I haven't been great about is I haven't been great about actually attaching the felt to the back. I even bought the felt, but I haven't been great about attaching the felt to the back and then sewing on the hook. A lot of them come with like a little sawtooth hook that you can sew on the back of the felt, and then you can hang it on a nail on the wall. And I haven't been good about finishing things. I have 1, 2, this will be the third, and I really need to finish the back of them so that I can go ahead and put them up on the wall because I would really like to do that. So that is another thing that I will work on this week. Part of the, I have slowed on this because I really wanted to knit on my sweater and because I really wanted to spin, but spinning and knitting seem to aggravate my tendonitis a little bit, and stitching is the only thing that doesn't. So I do think maybe I will finish this week, because since I have so many things that I'm working on that could potentially aggravate my arm, this is a good one to kind of put in between and do little bits of in the evenings after I've done some spinning and knitting, so that I can kind of keep myself limber and ready to go. I don't want to cause myself any injury, even though I do love spinning so much at this time of year. Excuse me. So I think that's all I've got for you today. That's kind of the plans. I don't have another embroidery kit put aside yet. I do have the sunflower piece that I was working on. I don't know if I'll go back to that or if I'll buy a new kit or if I'll take a little bit of a break. I have not worked on that second quilt at all. My plan actually is maybe on Thursday, I'm going to go ahead and get that sandwich together and get that kind of ready to go. I need to make my quilt sandwich, which is put the backing and batting and top together, pin them together. And then the other thing that I really need to do is I need to trace or tape the quilting lines that I want to do. On my last one, I kind of did a curly Q and I showed you that. On this upcoming one, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do kind of a lattice work. So I'm just going to do diagonals one direction and diagonals in the other direction. And so I need to measure that out and kind of mark the lines so that I can sew those straight lines. So my hope is maybe I'll do that on Thursday, and then I'll be able to work on that quilt in the next couple weeks. And then, like I said, I have a new top kind of on the way. That's in my mind that I'm ready to cast on. I have yarn already balled up for it. It was kind of yarn that was in progress, so I feel like I'm moving through some of my whips and kind of doing what feels good right now. So I actually have my next 2 sweaters planned out. All of it is yarn that I have now. I mean, I might have bought some of it recently, but all of it is yarn that I have in stash. And so I'm finding this year a little bit freeing. I'm not doing much gift knitting. I'm not doing much sample knitting. I'm pretty much doing chickens and then whatever I want. And it's been a really fun year. I mean, eventually I will go back to what I was doing because I love gift knitting. And I also have so many sweaters that like, as much as I want to keep knitting for myself, eventually I run out of places to put it all. And so I will eventually go back to knitting for other people and doing other things. But this has been kind of a treat this year to delve into new crafts and then also spend a little more time working on things that I would like to add for me. So I hope that you have a great week ahead, and maybe I'll see you in one of the spinning places if you're spinning for Tour de Fleece. Otherwise, I hope you have a lovely week ahead, and I will say, as I always do, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy quilting, embroidering, any other craft that you are enjoying, and I will see you, happy sipping, and I will see you next time. Bye.